Chaos wants to annihilate humanity. The Emperor is on life support. Titan Wargaming is the greatest 40k lore channel on YouTube. Okay, I threw that one in there, but I can dream big, and you can help us get there. I'd love to hit 8k subs by Christmas, so if you want to be updated with new lore delivered right to you as it's released by Black Library, then hit that sub button. Building a tight-knit community where we all share the same passion is something I'm striving for, somewhere we can hang out together. So if that sounds like something you'd like to be a part of, hit the sub and notification buttons now. Now, if you don't go out of your way to read every new novel and codex released, then you will miss both new lore developments and updates or retcons to older lore. There's lots of opinions out there which have wheedled their way into the brains of new starters and veterans alike when it comes to true facts about our beloved 40k lore. So let's set about correcting a few of the major ones I see kicking around online. Stick in there until the end because the last 2 points are the best in the entire video. Didn't they get the memo? Also referred to online as "that's silly, why didn't they know that already?" For those not aware, the primary form of communication within the Imperium is through astropathic message. Now, this isn't two people sending mind messages to one another, nothing simple as that. Astropathic messages are created and dispatched by psykers, and you know how we feel about those. Known as astropaths, but these are not organised, well-formed emails. They're sent in the form of a dream-type scape, as well as being laced with emotions by the person or multiple persons, called an astropathic choir, to convey particular points to the receiver. The astropath who receives a message must translate these emotions and images into a coherent report to pass on to the relevant persons. Pretty cool, but imagine when the astropath sending a message has either been corrupted in some way or has bore witness to the slaughter of his or her people, absorbing that emotional, psychic blowback, then casting it into the void in a request for aid. You can see why the astropaths who receive such messages tend to go insane. This type of occurrence is quite common in 40k novels, but probably the most standout, horrifying instance is when Talos' warband torture a handful of psychic populace from Seguelsa for weeks on end, before murdering them all by using his navigator, Octavia's third eye. By conducting this torture on an astropathic transmitter, as each tortured psyche dies in brutal agony, their psychic screams echo through entire systems. This not only causes astropaths on other worlds to go insane, it creates massive warp rifts and even causes demonic infestations on planets hit hard by the psychic backlash. Pretty crazy. The Mechanicus appeases machine spirits that are actually just old machines. It's been a long, decade-spanning lore truth that the Adeptus Mechanicus appease ill-tempered machine spirits by the application of sacred oils or tightening particularly holy bolts. What you may not know is that a lot of these machines actually are, in a way, inhabited by spirits. You see, everything within the material universe has a warp mirror. The more meaning or reverence associated with a particular machine imbues the true machine with an essence of that power, reflected back at it through its link to the immaterium, that can actually translate into power, which then imbues an object with a form of sentience. Worship is such a powerful form of emotion in the 40k setting, so minor objects may receive this sentience a bit, if any, whereas mighty ones such as knights, titans, Astartes vehicles, or particularly powerful engines vital to a world's survival most certainly would have some kind of sentience. One example of this is in the new Ashes of Creed novel, which you can find linked in the description. A young child, long separated from any teachings of the Omnissiah or Ecclesiarchy, states how she hasn't performed any blessings on her last rifle all her life, and it doesn't seem to affect the aim. Whereas in the novel Celestine, the Living Saint, an AI engine was corrupted by Khorne, corrupting the populace of a world against the Imperium. Other more common examples are Titan or Knight sentience, where a bond is formed between the pilot or princeps and the machine spirit itself. Abaddon is a failure. Here we go. You hear that? That's the sound of angry typing in the comment section. So the main reasons Abaddon is referred to as a failure are because it took 13 Black Crusades to finally achieve its goal, and generally because he is a so-called War Master of Chaos, but some people still stand by the fact they don't believe he's achieved much with all that power. Before we dive too far, may I present Exhibit A. This is the galaxy that Abaddon, through his scheming and patience, tore in two, cloaking half the Milky Way galaxy in an impenetrable darkness where the very guiding light of the Emperor cannot pierce. But that took thousands of years and 13 crusades, you say? Yes, this is very true. But in comparison, what has Guilliman's Indomitus Crusade achieved? Not only is Guilliman a Primarch, unlike Abaddon, but he has the entire Imperium's resources at his disposal, not just embittered traitor legions and fickle demons. Simply combating Abaddon, not even beating him, takes the likes of the Lion and Rabute Returned, Dante of the Blood Angels, Eldrad Ulthran, Trajan Valoris, the list goes on. Meanwhile, Abaddon's already onto his next plan, but it doesn't even stop there. Abaddon bears the mark of Chaos Ascendant, meaning he is the favoured champion of all four Chaos deities combined. To put that into context, Horus's betrayal soaked the stars in blood, transhuman, mankind, demon and Xenos alike. It was all-encompassing. It dashed the Emperor's plans for his entire species, corrupted his sons, the list goes on, and he did not bear that favour. Horus's will was eventually too weak to prevent the Chaos Pantheon from overwhelming his resolve. Abaddon, on the other hand, has wielded their combined power for millennia, and not only does he refuse to bow before them, he harnesses their might for his own plans. What a guy. This point segues quite well into our next massive misconception, which is Chaos want to take over the galaxy or win. Firstly, I need to say there isn't a particular end parameter for the Chaos Gods. They don't want to make humanity extinct. They don't even want to defeat the Imperium, really, though I'm sure they'd enjoy casting the Emperor down. What the Chaos Gods truly want is chaos. They feed on the emotions and suffering of mankind. These emotions are mirrored in the Immaterium, which empowers the Chaos Gods, even aiding them in what is called the Great Game, the Chaos Pantheon's war between each other. What the Chaos Gods truly crave is war eternal, basically what the galaxy is like at this very moment. Have you ever wondered why particular deities such as Khorne don't just empower their champion at a crucial moment so they win a key engagement? In the grand scheme of their metagame, single wars or conflicts don't matter as much. Most of the time, they couldn't possibly care less, because their war is eternal, and the fleeting acts of champions must be truly impressive to make them take notice. These dark reflections of mankind's worst qualities or deeds want to corrupt the incorruptible, turning champions of light to darkness in a spiral of hatred and ultimately madness before they turn their attention to their next toy, sowing chaos and having fun doing it. It is not the 42nd millennium. To the people who really want the calendar to tick over, to you I say, be careful what you wish for. But think about it this way for a moment. Would it actually matter if it was the 42nd millennium? It wouldn't change the current events within the setting, and it certainly wouldn't change the way Black Library authors write. Ultimately, we've gained a progressive story in recent years, which is awesome. Old characters are returning, with the new novels being released, characters are being written in other narratives, even some between 30k and 40k, which again is fun. What we need to as a fanbase be careful of, however, is wishing away the story. Most of us have realised by now it's not quite the turn of the millennium, a point which was clarified by Guilliman himself in Dark Imperium. The galaxy is an immense place. Plenty can happen within 1 year, let alone 1 millennia. The more we push the narrative further in time, the more beloved characters we lose and the faster the current setting is over. I don't know about you, but I'm really enjoying how things are at the moment, and I'd like it to be this way for some time yet, before the setting is pushed forward significantly. What's your take on this point though? I've seen lots of comments on these issues in the past, and I'd love to know your take. It doesn't matter, because the Imperium will just win again. The Imperium is not only assailed without by horrors too terrible for the mortal mind to comprehend, its galaxy-spanning governing bodies and bureaus are fractious and riven with internecine conflicts. Whilst faithful guard regiments are condemned to be fed into the meat grinder of attrition warfare, the Imperium's own internal factions partake in malicious activities towards one another, such as disinformation, which can only affect the greater Imperium negatively, civil unrest sparked by their own agents, and even assassination of opposing political party members. You can imagine that all this inner turmoil doesn't help in the least when coordinating bureaucratic or military logistics across the breadth of a galaxy on a constant war footing. Perhaps the most obvious example of this inner strife is the Administratum and Ecclesiarchy, as both are made of numerous subdivisions who all have their own best interests at heart. Considering shadowy, powerful organisations can at times be drawn into political conflicts such as the Inquisition Ordos and their Chamber Militant, or even Astartes chapters, massive military campaigns which hide true agendas are not out of the question. All this talk of a crumbling institution too divided or steeped in archaic tradition to be effective, and we've not even begun detailing the external threats to the Imperium. As we discovered in our video detailing the events of the newest Tyranid lore from the Leviathan novel, the most numerous swarm of Tyranids has recently emerged onto the galactic plane from the west at the edge of Segmentum Pacificus. Now this swarm, sporting monstrosities never before witnessed, has pierced the cordon of planets dubbed the Sanctic Line. Now a clear path can be followed to Terra. Not only this, but it's said the Lord Guilliman himself would need to steer his attention to this threat, removing him from the push against the forces of chaos spilling forth from the Imperium Nihilus, gifting precious systems back to the forces of the Despoiler. Now I understand why numerous 40k fans are ready to dismiss the most recent threat. After all, numerous Hive Fleet invasions to the Galactic East were thwarted before even the Primaris were implemented, or the Primarch recovered. However, a point I really do believe needs to be taken into account is that fully half the Imperium's territory has been lost very recently. That is the curtain of the Immaterium known as the Cicatrix Maledictum, imposing itself between Imperium Sanctus and Nihilus. Still reeling from these massive losses of manpower, supply and raw resources, not only does this make fending off Tyranid invasions infinitely more difficult, there are constant streams of Chaos servants spilling into Imperium Sanctus. When you consider the size of the Imperium and the fact it did not wield the necessary resources or even coordination to fend off the deprivations of other races before the Great Rift formed, this puts into perspective the fact in which every threat now is many times more dangerous than it would have been with the galaxy of resources at mankind's disposal. Remember, in the Leviathan novel, Ultramarine Lieutenant Castamon, by his own admission, stated that to have any chance of addressing the threat which Hive Fleet Leviathan now posed to Segmentum Solar and Terra itself would mean Guilliman needed to travel to Segmentum Solar in person. Again, by the Lieutenant's admission, this would mean effectively relinquishing control of Imperial territories either recently won or fought bitterly over against the forces of chaos on the border systems of the Great Rift. These statements by Castamon really hit home how thinly spread the Imperium's resources are. After all, the point of 40k is to frame what a perpetual state of internal decay and ever-present empire-ending threats are posed against mankind. Otherwise, it wouldn't be that grimdark. Space Marines are the workhorse of the Imperium's military. The men, women, and abhumans who make up the Imperium's Astra Militarum regiments and various auxiliaries are the most common, main fighting force mankind possesses. Whilst there exist many glorious tales detailing the mass deployments of Space Marine chapters, this is a rare thing indeed. It isn't even common for a specific Space Marine company to deploy, considering that Astartes battle forces are comprised of elements drawn from a range of different companies. There's a reason so many are awestruck when encountering Space Marines. That is because within the 41st millennia, 10,000 years since their inception, Space Marines are figures of legend, sons of the Emperor's Primarchs, and heroic figures of religious significance to the general citizenry. Even when Space Marines do deploy, it is far more common they do so in such small numbers, from tactical squad size to a single specialist marine, that the concept of so many planets swarming with transhuman soldiers just isn't an accurate representation of how they operate within the lore. The Golden Throne is a life support device. A carrion god sat on a throne of lies, if you believe the propaganda. But one thing that's true is that the Golden Throne is not a life support device. You see, it wasn't originally intended for the Emperor or even for Magnus to spend their entire time sitting upon. We know the Emperor intended for Magnus' enormous psychic talent to be the key to controlling his Webway project's operation, but when the Cyclops stumbled through his father's warp defenses like a reckless child, heedless of the forces manipulating him, these plans, and in turn the purpose of the Golden Throne, were irrevocably changed. The only reason the Emperor is in his current deathly state, besides his wounding by Horus, is because of two things. One, he holds at bay a truly horrific, potentially system-consuming horde of demons from entering the Imperial Palace by sheer willpower alone. And secondly, he must control the Astronomicon himself at all times. The Golden Throne isn't so much a life support device as much as it is being kept functional by the Emperor, taxing his life force immensely, something alleviated slightly by the thousands of human souls fed to him. Ferrus is boring or just reckless? Alas, poor Ferrus, I knew him well. Is Ferrus Manus boring with very little personality? No, but yes. But only yes because of the era he's written in so far. Get it? Ferrus Manus was actually a very deep character who so much epitomizes the grimdark aspect within the Primarch's siblings. On his own homeworld, the only gift he gave to his people was not just an opportunity to make something of themselves. All Ferrus gave them was a chance to survive. If his people grew complacent or squandered what they had, they would inevitably be conquered or butchered by somebody more ambitious, laying in wait. Ferrus led from the front and by example. A little known fact is that being only the fourth Primarch discovered, Ferrus, alongside only Horus and the Emperor himself, was trusted with leading one of the three main expansion fleets outward from Segmentum Solar. The Gorgon, as Ferrus is also known, was even counted among Guilliman's dauntless few, along with the likes of Sanguinius, Dawn, and Leman Russ. If there's ever a novel series depicting the Primarchs prior to the timeline in the Horus Heresy, I fully expect Ferrus Manus would actually be a massive fan favourite instead of a hothead who gets decapitated by his petulant brother. Let me know in the comments if you knew all that about Ferrus. Look, as someone who started the hobby at the same time as getting into the lore as a kid, I'm a very firm believer in that the setting means something different to each of us at the end of the day. If you want to write your own lore detailing how your custom homebrew chapter exceeds the mandated 1000 Marines, or any other point that contradicts the established lore, then go ahead. I thought we'd take a break from our standard videos for something a bit more off the cuff, so let me know if you enjoyed the content. Gap Games has 21% off Warhammer, so by clicking the link in the descriptions, you can buy some 40k or hobby supplies at a bargain price, which helps out a local business as well as Titan Wargaming. I've also started a Patreon with the aim of building a tight-knit community, so you can check out the tiers there. They start at a very cheap price. The Titan Wargaming Discord link is also in the description, so feel free to swing around and say hi, talk some of your favourite lore, and post photos of your own models. You show me yours and I'll show you mine. Each like, share and comment helps the machine spirit that is YouTube's algorithm to grow our channel and community. Until next week, take it easy and have a good one.